Welcome to Storywork. My name is Devin Madson, and today we're going to be talking about the 3 story essentials. In honor of NaNoWriMo, we're going back to basics today. Because sometimes when you're struggling for words, it isn't because you need a cooler character, or because you don't have enough fight scenes, or because your plot isn't doing what you wanted to do. It's because your foundations have slipped. Good stories need good foundations. So let's take a look at the 3 essential foundations. Why is it always 3? Number 1, the protagonist. Okay, so this one might seem like a no-brainer. To have a story, you have to have a protagonist. For people who don't like big words, that's someone who the story is about. For a simple example, few would argue that Hercule Poirot is the protagonist of Murder on the Orient Express, or that Harry Potter is the protagonist of the Harry Potter series. It helps when your name is in the title, but it can get more complicated thanks to perspective. Is Star Wars the story of Luke Skywalker coming of age and discovering the Force? Or is it the story of Darth Vader's redemption? Is Lord of the Rings the story of Frodo Baggins journeying to destroy the One Ring? Or is it the story of Aragorn accepting his birthright and overcoming the weakness of his ancestor? And if it's one of those, why do we see so much of the story from Sam, Merry, and Pippin? And then there's stories that are more obvious in their multiple use of protagonists, such as The Song of Ice and Fire, known to the masses as Game of Thrones. It has multiple protagonists and multiple points of view, which aren't always the same thing. But no matter who your protagonist is or how many you have, they need to be likable, or at least able to be empathized with. But most importantly of all, they need agency. And that brings us to the second essential. Number 2, the problem. Now for the 3 basic requirements for a story, this is the one that is most overlooked, belittled, or ignored entirely. The problem, the goal, the end game. Call it what you will, but without one, all you have is ramble. Frodo without the ring to get rid of. Harry without Voldemort to overcome. A detective without a mystery? Like with every rule, there are exceptions. The main one here being the stranger in a strange land idea, or as TV Tropes calls it, the naive newcomer. Back to Harry Potter, this is the reason why we can go halfway into the first book before he actually encounters a genuine problem. Because the world itself is a problem. This is also why fantasy novels have a lot more leeway for when the plot trigger shows up. It's called world building. But in the murder mystery, you have to give us a dead body in the first chapter because the day-to-day life of Miss Marple is not very interesting. The plot trigger is our first encounter with the big problem. It is what sends our hero or heroine off on their journey. This is Frodo getting handed the One Ring. This is the dead body showing up, washed up on a beach, with a sack full of wedding rings shoved down its pants. This is our hero's village getting destroyed so he can set off on a journey of revenge. Without a problem, there is no plot trigger. Without a plot trigger, there is no plot, because your protagonist has no goal. Remember that it is protagonist plus problem equals plot, because it is how the protagonist reacts to the problem that creates the story. Plots don't happen in a vacuum. So now we have a protagonist, and our protagonist has a problem, but we can't just let him win easily, right? Number 3, the antagonist. The antagonist is the person working in opposition to your protagonist. Now, they don't always have to be a villain, just someone whose goals are in conflict with the goals of the protagonist. Let's look at some examples. Examples of fun. All right. Eddard Stark wants to find out who killed Jon Arryn, but Lannisters. On the flip side, Cersei Lannister would really rather that the world didn't find out that her kids are incest bastards, but who keeps getting in the way? Eddard Stark. Let's do another one. Frodo wants to get that ring to Mount Doom, but Sauron would really rather he didn't do that. On the flip side, Sauron would like to have his ring back after all this time, but Frodo doesn't want to give it to him. Sauron is Frodo's antagonist. But Frodo is also Sauron's antagonist. It works for the murder mystery example as well. The detective wants to find out who did the stabby stab, but the person who did the stabby stab doesn't want to be found out. And this is where we get conflict in stories. Characters with agency who are both trying to achieve conflicting goals are inevitably going to collide. And it's this conflict that drives our stories and makes them exciting to read and write. So if you find that you're really struggling for words, maybe it's time to revisit these foundations. Make sure you have a protagonist who has a problem and someone who's stopping them from solving their problem. Protagonist plus problem equals plot. And protagonist versus antagonist equals conflict. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed a little walk back into the land of writing basics. If you want any more information on this topic or any other that we've covered, then click the link in the description below and check it out on my website. And next week, we will be talking about how to write a likable protagonist. Stop making weird noises. Sticky paper for the win. Stop it. Oh my god. I haven't even done the first one. Stop. No.